to the Movie Couple channel. I'm Wendy.
I'm Dustin.
And this is our review for Blue Beetle.
Are you guys hearing this? Get out of my head!
Jaime Reyes suddenly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of an alien biotechnology called the Scarab. When the Scarab chooses Jaime to be its symbiotic host, he's bestowed with an incredible suit of armor that's capable of extraordinary and unpredictable powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes the superhero Blue Beetle. Alright, Blue Beetle, the movie that you and I have been looking forward to. We have enjoyed seeing Blue Beetle in the animated version in Young Justice. That was actually my first exposure ever to Blue Beetle. Was that the case for you as well?
Honestly, for me too. I've known about Blue Beetle. I've known that he's taken different forms, so to speak, and he has evolution over time. But this is the Young Justice was the first time that I actually got to see his story, learn about the Scarab, learn about its connection to the Reach. And I was really excited to see him brought to the big screen for the first time, because we're also really starting to run out of superheroes who have not gotten their live action big screen premiere.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the DCU currently, aside from the Holy Trinity that I like to call them, the Superman, the Batman, the Wonder Woman, we have also gotten the Flash movie, the Black Adam movie, the Shazam movie, Wonder Woman, we already said that. Who else have we gotten out of Suicide Squad?
So, yeah, a whole bunch of them in Suicide Squad.
And I think that may have...
Green Lantern?
So we were both really excited to see Blue Beetle debut properly in the MCU, and we're super excited also that Xolo Maridueña is playing Jaime Reyes, because we love him in Cobra Kai. He plays Miguel, if you guys probably have watched Cobra Kai. So we just thought like his age, and just everything, his skills, was the right person to portray Jaime. Yeah,
he really did have that natural kind of Jaime kind of character already in Cobra Kai. So I thought as soon as they announced him, I was like, that's perfect. That is the perfect casting. And he already has a little bit of a martial arts background, so we know he can pull off a lot of some of these fight scenes. And from the trailers, it just looked like we were like, this fits perfectly. And I was excited, not just about him, but about the rest of the cast, about the family dynamic, about the special effects, about just the comedy that was going to go with this series as well seemed to fit perfectly. And I was just excited to experience Blue Beetle making his debut on the live action big screen, and all of these other things that just seemed to fit together perfectly.
Yeah, and I think this movie was so solid because it knew exactly what it was, which was a young superhero's origin story. It wasn't trying to blend itself into the DCU, although it knew that itself existed within a little bit of reference to that, but it's not like cameo heavy. It doesn't rely on cameos and things like that. It is just kind of sort of contained within its own story, which I thought that this is how you properly debut, a superhero, especially of a Blue Beetle, where the general audience, like for example, if I was taking if my parents wanted to go see the film.
Yeah.
Maybe my dad would, because, he does love comic books, but my mom, her knowledge doesn't extend past Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, and Spider-Man. But it's not even in the same universe, so it doesn't count.
But that is normally sometimes what is so freeing about seeing some of these lesser well-known characters being brought to the big screen, is that you do get a little bit of flexibility with their storyline, and with Jaime Reyes, you get to have you've got a good strong base with his foundation story, and he comes into contact with the Scarab. How he does or doesn't come into contact with it, you can play with it a little bit. Yeah. But what really is the fundamental of this story is him and his family, and how they would react to their eldest son all of a sudden becoming a superhero.
I think that is, aside from all the cool action, obviously, and getting to see, Xolo play not just Jaime, but as Blue Beetle, is really fun. But the family dynamic is, I think, one of the best part about this movie. They have a very close-knit family.
They don't get out much.
And the family is very much involved throughout the film. It's not just like they get introduced and then in the beginning and then they come back at the end to kind of like pat Jaime on the back. No, they're very much involved every step of the way, kind of like what you said, when Jaime kind of gets in contact with the Scarab and finds him to be a suitable host. That all happens. You guys saw this in the trailer already, so we don't consider this spoiler. The family, rightfully so, including Jaime himself, like all collectively flip out. And it is quite... It's, as I was watching it, like, yeah, they played it for comedy, but not in a cheesy way. But like their reaction is funny to us because they're all screaming, but the way they animated the Scarab kind of like not syncing up, but I guess
taking over,
and the suit emerges. It was such a cool moment, and it was very chaotic, but it was captured really, really well.
I think you really could have taken that moment to where the suit is taking over, and just with some simple editing, you could have turned it into something that was a lot scarier. I mean, there were some moments where you're like, oh, and the way that the Scarab just wrapped around him, you saw a little bit of it in the trailer, but it is a lot more detailed in the actual movie. And I actually, that's something that I really did like about this entire movie, is the fact that they didn't, they weren't afraid to actually push that creep factor a little bit forward. Not like as in like a horror movie moments where you're scared or tense, but to where you're like, oh, that's a little brutal, to where there are some of those moments. And I'm like, okay, this is definitely a strong PG-13.
Yes.
They weren't going for, just PG. There were some moments that were definitely a little bit more adult, and I like the fact that they kind of pushed that envelope. But the comedy between the family, you could feel the love, you can feel the camaraderie, and the way that everyone in the family, everyone in their family has those moments to where you're just kind of like, hey.
Yes, they poke fun at each other.
They poke fun at each other a lot. They deliberately make things a little bit more fun, difficult, but it's all done with love.
Yes, it's all done with love, and it's also kind of refreshing to have a movie that like is just enveloped in like the family love versus like the generational pressure and trauma.
Yeah,
like so they kept it light in that sense, because Jaime is also dealing with 50 million other things. So, we see him as he's coming back. He just graduated college. He's coming back to his family. Neighborhood's changed quite a bit. And we see that there's gentrification going on. There's a new Starbucks. There's this and that. And it's starting to take away the charm of, their town. It's also making it so that small local businesses can't thrive or is forced to close its doors, which is, I feel like, we, as like the audience, is also kind of something we see, in our modern time. So let's talk about sort of the villain for the film, and that is Susan Sarandon. And when she popped up on the screen, I kind of forgot, because she's not in the trailer that much.
Yeah, she's only in it for a little bit.
Right, so I kind of forgot that she was she was in the film, and I was like, oh, that's right. So she plays Victoria. She heads up the Cord Corporation, I guess. I don't remember if it's like Cord or association. I'm going to call it corporation for review purposes. And she is, searching for the tech that is the Scarab, and how to take that and weaponize it.
Yeah.
And then so for comic book fans out there, because I don't remember if they touched on this in Young Justice, but they definitely touched on the OMAC stuff, the one-man army the one-man army corps. They kind of get into that, and I think that's where, for me, like, the Jaime stuff is so good, the Blue Beetle stuff is so good. I love the family. We already talked about it. I think some of the things that I can critique a little is maybe the villains. It became very formulaic, which is not really a bad thing when you're watching a superhero origin movie. If you watch enough of them, you're kind of like, okay, I get it. Obviously, performances are great. Sometimes it gets a little bit of like a mustache twirling,
you're like,
moments.
You're obviously evil when you do this.
Yes.
How do you not know that you are evil?
Yes. So they kind of get in, so that kind of gets a little paint by the numbers, but it's not terrible. I feel like I'm kind of kind of just nitpicking by calling that out.
Yeah, and honestly, that is something that this movie does really, really well in some more areas, is that they take this formula that is known for the superhero origin, and you can very much tell, oh, okay, this is what's going to happen in this moment. Okay, this is what's going to happen in this moment. But it's done very well in a lot of situations that involve Jaime and his family. When it does get to the villains, that's when it kind of follows it to a fault. But it's still not as bad as some of the other when there's a lot of other superhero movies that tried to follow this formula and did not do a good job on it. This formula, it's a formula for a reason, but when you're able to follow it and do drive it with character-driven story, and you're able to get the main hero and kind of something that the audience can relate to, that's when it just clicks. And overall, even though it's very formulaic, I enjoyed it a lot. But there were, like you said, there are some little things that you can nitpick, where you can sit down and go, okay, that's a little convenient writing, but you know what? It's not that important. You can forget a lot of the flaws in this movie are very easily forgotten and very easily been like, oh, okay, that's not really that important. Let's move on.
Yeah, the movie knows what the focus needs to be on, and first and foremost is obviously Blue Beetle and Jaime kind of coming into its powers, getting used to all of that, so you kind of hear him, and like you see him and how he's interacting with all of a sudden this voice inside his head, and it's starting to sync with his being, and how he's dealing with that, the newfound power, and obviously the new threat, which when you put a family and a superhero together, the big bad always goes after what the hero loves, or who the hero loves, which is his family. But this family sticks together, they fight together, and that's kind of what makes this movie really cool. By all means, that does not take away from any of the awesome Blue Beetle action moments. There are so many. The final battle between Jaime and the baddie is really a lot of fun to watch. It just kind of brought me back to that like classic, comic book superhero movie vibe.
It had a
lot
of anime vibes.
Yes.
Even the structure of kind of like the final fight, where
like
you have the power up to where it's like the bad guy wins, but then there's a power up for the good guy, but then the bad guy gets a power up too, and then they're fighting a little bit more, and then there's that moment of, oh no, it's all gonna come to an end, but the good guy comes back again, and it's a cool little build up. And there's just some moments in that fight that are just really cool, some really cool stunts, some really cool fight moments, and there's definitely, you saw them in the trailer, when he has that big sword and he kicks it up and flips it and lands it on his shoulder, and you're just like, someone played some Final Fantasy when they were writing this.
It was giving Final Fantasy Cloud. When the sword came out, it was reminding me of like Ichigo from Bleach and his Zanbakuto and going into Bankai like that. I was just like living for it. Yeah, it was really great. And of course, so there's action, there's a villain, there is the hero struggle of like, not really self-identity, because I feel like Jaime, because he has graduated college, he is 22 in this film. In Young Justice, I think he's much younger.
Yeah, I think he's high school.
Yeah, so he's kind of already done a bit of his own self-discovery there. But so this is more of learning, like, what do I do now? I didn't ask for the superhero power, but I'm stuck with it.
This is not what I went to college for.
Right? Yeah, completely. So on top of that, we keep going back to the family. There's a lot of really great, heartfelt, emotional moments with the family, and I said to myself, I'm like, I'm probably not gonna cry in this movie, like, and I cried twice.
There was a couple moments,
I cried twice.
You're fighting back the tears and you're sniffling, and you're like, oh wow, this is hitting home.
It hit real hard, and then I thought I got past it. And then all the feelings came back up later again. And I was like, oh my god, what is this? So really enjoy just kind of that bit of an emotional roller coaster that it takes you on. One of the other flaws I have to talk about is the action scenes, not the fight choreography. Those are fine. They're very entertaining to watch. It's that both of them that happen are both in the dark. You don't always see Blue Beetle in the dark. There's him in the daytime too, but his two major battles are in the dark, which when the suits, sometimes, yeah. It didn't bother me that much with the shake cams. It was more that it was dark, and I think the reason that they did that was because when the Blue Beetle suit lights up, it looks really cool, and then with the other suit lights up, that looks really cool with the effects and everything going back and forth. That looks great, but then you're also missing out on the intricacy of the actual fight choreography. Like, I feel like that we didn't get to see as much. So I feel like, sure, we could have gotten one in the nighttime. I would have liked another one in another time setting, but it is what it is. I just wish that we could have seen the fight better.
Yeah, and also I do believe, in my personal opinion, that the way that these fights ended did very much follow that formulaic superhero ending, and I wish they could have given us a little bit more with the villain, and because he did kind of come off as just a little shallow, not as bad as, like, say, Bane from Batman and Robin, where he's just like, but he was a very one-dimensional character, and I wish they would have given us a little bit more. And there are other things in the movie that I'm like, oh, I wish I had a little bit more of that. Like, I wish we would have had a little bit more of a conversation between Jaime and the Scarab, where they're just kind of like learning about each other, where they're kind of like having this kind of deep conversation to where they're kind of like, okay, wait, what exactly are you? And then the Scarab kind of learning a little bit more about Jaime, because there's this moment at the end that you're like, that relationship kind of just
it just grew
together
super fast. I feel like it was like eluded that they had the conversation. I feel like they just got edited out of the movie for time, perhaps, because this movie is just a little over 2 hours long. And speaking of the editing, there are some stuff that some of the scenes, like connecting from one to the next, felt kind of jumpy, and I didn't understand the reasoning for it. And then there's also another character. Her name is Jenny. I don't want to say too much just to like kind of save you guys from spoilers, but her story is really, really great. She's got a connection to the Cord Corporation, and I feel like her backstory could have been just fleshed out a little bit better as well, because I think that would have been a lot more impactful. So when later on she would get emotional about things, you'd actually buy it. Like, her performance was good, but I just didn't feel connected to it, because we're like, what do we know about what she's talking about? You know, so, but to that note, you guys have been hearing us say the word corporation. I don't know if corporation, again, is the right thing to put at the end, but for the review purpose, we're gonna say that. So anybody who knows the comic book, you hear the word cord, then you already know what and who we are alluding to. So there are, it's like more than Easter eggs, but I don't wanna say too much, because this is supposed to be non-spoiler. So it's more than an Easter egg and a mention, but not an actual. Well, you'll have to, I guess, watch and find out.
That is walking a very fine line of spoilers. So we're just going to be like, we're going to mention it, and we're going to move on.
And then on top of that, I guess we should know. I mean, this is a superhero movie. You guys already know the drill. But there are two. So there's one post-credit that you should. Sorry, there's one mid-credit that you should definitely stay for. And then there's also a post-credit as well, if you don't need to like run out of the theater to go to the bathroom or something like that. That's something to look forward to as well. So with that said, overall, what rating would you give to Blue Beetle?
Overall, I had a lot of fun with this. They had great comedy, great characters. The family was amazing. I loved the way Blue Beetle looked, and some of the expressions that they were able to get from Jaime in the suit was still really entertaining. Even though there were a lot of moments that were very formulaic, they pulled off that formula and those cliches very well. So I'm going to give this a check it out.
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a really solid debut for Blue Beetle into the DCU. I just enjoy watching, a young superhero's origin story that didn't rely on having to have certain cameos or name drops to make it fun and interesting, or to acknowledge the fact that it is a part of the DCU. Like, if you know the DCU, you're gonna note the little things that they just subtly drop in there, and subtlety is the key. I absolutely love the Reyes family. Like I want to, like, I don't know, have dinner with them or something, because they're just so much fun, so loving. I love that this movie was a lot of action, moved pretty quickly. There were fights, there were emotional moments, there are hilarious moments, and formulaic villain aside, this was a really fun film, and my rating for this movie is also check it out. So there you have it. That is our non-spoiler-ish review for Blue Beetle. Let us know your thoughts after you've seen the film by commenting below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Greetings. Welcome back to the Movie Couple channel. What else am I saying?